We got New Jersey's Governor Christie is here right now. He's running for the Republican presidential nomination. Governor, good to see you. Good morning.
Good to be back, guys.
Does a candidate for president, in this case the Republican frontrunner, have a responsibility to shut down a supporter when the supporter erroneously says that the president's not an American, that he's Muslim, and then goes on to say, we have a problem in this country, it's called Muslims? Does Mr. Trump need to apologize to the president and to Muslims?
He's got to decide what he wants to do for himself, but I would just tell you that if somebody at one of my town hall meetings said something like that, I would correct them and say, no, the president's a Christian, and he was born in this country. I mean, I think those two things are self-evident.
Do you think it would be right for Mr. Trump to apologize to Muslims this morning?
Well, listen, I think Donald Trump's got to decide, as we've seen, I've said this all along, he's got to decide how serious a candidate he wants to be, and how he handles different problems like this are going to determine that in the eyes of the American people. I'm not going to lecture him about what to do. I'll just tell you what I would do. And I wouldn't have permitted that. If someone brought that up at a town hall meeting of mine, I would have said, no, listen, before we answer, let's clear some things up for the rest of the audience. And I think you have an obligation as a leader to do that.
Governor, you want to be the general election nominee. Is Trump doing long-term damage to the Republican brand if he's insulting Muslims, Latinos, women, veterans, prisoners of war? I mean, do you worry about the effect this is having for the long-term prospects of the Republican Party?
I don't, Savannah, because in the end, what's going to matter is who's the nominee of the party. The party standard bearer is the person who winds up holding in his or her hands the burden and the opportunity of defining the Republican Party. And so we're a long way from that. Being ahead in the polls, as I've said many times, in September doesn't mean you're going to be standing on the stage in Cleveland in July. So let's see what happens between now and July, and then we could probably answer that question a lot better.
It seems so hard for anyone to get attention these days. I looked at that stage the other night, Governor, all those podiums. How do you get from the podium on the end to a podium closer to the center? How do you break out?
Well, listen, I just think you keep being yourself, man. I think if you try to be somebody else, the voters get that, and they detect a lack of authenticity. They detect if you're trying too hard. Be yourself, and that's what I tried to do, at the debate on Wednesday night. I don't know, I had about 9 or 10 minutes of time in the 3 hours, but the fact is that I think people got to see a bit of who I am on a broader national stage, and I think you'll see things start to happen from there. But it's a long slog. I mean, I love folks who say to you all the time, you know this, people say to you, the run for the presidency is a marathon. And then they say, what are your poll numbers today? You're like, well, come on. It's a marathon. It means that we're not going to have any kind of even inkling of what's going to happen for 4 or 5 months.
All right, we're going to do a little lightning round if we could. Okay, do you think the government's going to shut down over defunding Planned Parenthood?
Probably not.
Joe Biden, is he going to run for president?
I hope he does.
What about Pope Francis? Would you consider him a transformative pope?
We'll see. Certainly his attitude, the way he has dealt with the church in the beginning and with the faithful has the potential to be transformative. John Paul II was transformative, but we learned that over a period of time. I think we're going to learn about the Pope, and we look forward to seeing him next week.
Last one, Ahmed Mohammed, that young man who brought the homemade clock to school. Did the school overreact?
It's such a tough thing. It's obvious that they did. I mean, when you look at the facts, it's obvious that they did. But we also know that we live in extraordinarily dangerous times, and people are really concerned. And that's part of what I've been talking about on the campaign trail. The president hasn't met the burden of making people feel safe. And so you can have instances like this that are a problem.
Governor Christie. Governor, it was good to have you.
Happy to be back, and this is really quite something.
Theater in the
to be
round.
sitting up here. Amazing. I feel like big time now. This is great.
You feel like Matt Lauer.
No, please. Please, no, stop. I'm not nearly that famous.
Governor, good to see you.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.